Patricia Haley Glass is a trailblazing, award-winning #1 Essence and Christian national best-selling author of 14 novels. Her popular titles include No Regrets, Still Waters, Anointed, Betrayed, Chosen, Humbled, Forgiven, Relentless, and Redeemed. Besides her literary endeavors, Patricia is an accomplished businesswoman with dual BS degrees from Stanford University in engineering and management, as well as an MBA from the University of Chicago, concentrating in finance and marketing. She's a seniors operations and program manager who supported initiatives across 5 continents. Personally, Patricia is a basketball fan who enjoys traveling with her husband Jeffrey, listening to jazz, watching theater, playing spades, board games, puzzles, and of course, spending time with loved ones. Patricia, thank you so much for being here. On a side note, I will have to say if we ever meet in person, we got a spades game that needs
It's
to take
on.
place.
It's
Okay.
on. Now, nothing personal. We'll still love one another after, but
Oh,
break it
absolutely.
down, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you can't play, get off the table. That's how that's how we do. So, welcome so much.
Thank
We are
you.
so honored to have you here.
Thank you so much. And I just have to add to that, the most important part that I'm surprised is not up front on my bio is that I'm a born again believer who loves the Lord. He is the one who gives me guidance and direction, who has formed and shaped me and continues to encourage me and nurture me and brought me, let my husband, my beloved husband, find me. So I am grateful to God for who he is in my life.
Absolutely. Thank you. And if anyone paid attention to those titles of her book, I am sure you can see that there is Jesus all up and through there. The titles in and of themselves, they are very telling. So thank you for being part of the Faith and Fellowship Book Festival, and we
Honor.
just we are honored to have you here. So I don't see any questions in the chat just yet. Um, Also, I just want to parenthetically say if you raise your hand and I don't see you, you might have to like say Psst, because I'm paying attention. So I might not see your hand, but please again feel free to interject. We want you to enjoy this time and really get to know Patricia and her works. So Patricia, why don't we start off by you telling us some pivotal moments that have taken place throughout your 28 plus year writing journey.
Yeah, pivotal moments. There's so many, really, because you know, my background. You heard my background. I am a numbers person through and through. That is my talk about passion. I'm My daughter teases me all the time, and my husband laughs at me because I'm the person. You know, when you're in a high school and you have algebra, you say you just want to get through the class. You're never going to use it again. I use algebra actually all the time. I like my daughter was like, "Mom, can you just give me the answer? Like, I'll ask certain thing." I'm like, "Well, that's an algebraic problem." You know, my husband's like, "Okay, babe, I know it's gonna be a problem." But I love that. I used to in my 30s and 40s when we would go on vacation, my HP 12C calculator, I still have the same one that I had in graduate school that I got in 1987. I still have it. Matter of fact, I just put batteries in it yesterday. I used to take it on vacation with me just to have it, just to open it up and turn, do the numbers and, do I like spreadsheets and all that stuff. So I'm always doing that. So that was my thing. But when I realized that I had talent to write, the very thing is in college where we had a writing class, and I was like, oh, let me just get through this. This is just slowing me down. I got to stay on track to get through engineering in 4 years. And then I realized I actually have a writing talent. But what I realized, what I really have is the gift of storytelling and sharing wisdom. So that is what I really have. The writing part came after. That was like, okay, how do I get it out of me? But then I'm like, because even when I wrote the first book, I didn't think it was a book because it just flowed so easily. I didn't think that could possibly be a book. And then I have my friend who reads it. I have several friends back then who really are avid readers. They read it like, oh, it's great. But these are my close friends. I mean? Like, okay, yeah. They're like the ones that, push those poor people up on like American Idol. You go up there, how did anybody let them get out the house singing like that? So I'm like, so my one pivotal moment was just realizing that there was a gift that I had. And then once I realized for me, the spiritual part kicked in because once I realized I have a gift that I know
Mm,
or a talent that has come from God, it can only come from God, then I have to be able to use it. I have to use it for something. I have to use it. Not knowing that when I look back, that when I started, the first moment was, okay, I have this writing ability. Let me write this book. And then I'm like, well, if I'm writing, let me tell the story I want to tell. And I wanted to write faith-based fiction or really clean fiction. I didn't want a book that had a lot of sex or had a cursing and all that. I just wanted to write a everyday story with everyday people telling with everyday struggles, where God got the glory in the end, but it wasn't preachy, didn't have scriptures. And it really wasn't in a modern day setting. There weren't any books like that at the time when I
mm,
came out late 90s. And so I just wrote what I wanted to read. And so when I actually self-published, that was a pivotal moment. I actually got the book out there and then we sold like 25,000 copies or something. And then we got picked up by then agents and publishers called. That was another pivotal moment. But really the most important moment, one of the most pivotal moments to me is when I realized that my books, if only one word, if God would have me write 20 books, if only one word on one page encouraged somebody, he would have me go
mm,
through this whole process just to do that. And when I realized that, you know what, I'm just not writing to entertain. Yeah, it's great, it's entertaining, but I am actually being used as be a blessing to somebody, to be an answer to prayer to somebody,
mm.
to be used by God to be a light in somebody's life. And with that, it becomes not just a thing or something to do, it becomes a responsibility. And then that gift now then became where a point, okay, well, I got to get better at writing. I got to figure out how to really, write now, not just tell the story, but be able to write. So those moments came. And then later on, I realized God got me do all this. You know what? Because he was drawing me to the ministry. The last thing on my
Mm.
mind was me being a minister or, I'm an engineer, finance, marketing. These are my things, building out operations across overseas. That's my thing. But Lord, seriously, you're gonna have me all the things I avoided. I went into engineering, Lord, so I wouldn't have to speak in front of anybody. I wouldn't have to sell anything. I wouldn't have to go back to school. So now you're gonna have me selling books. You're gonna have me speaking. You're gonna have me ministering. You're gonna have me going back taking writing class. What? But yes, I realized that what, the very areas that I ran from, that's what God used here to draw me to those, to refine those for His glory. And I say that, and I'm not just being like all religious. The Lord has really been such an instrumental part of my life and is. And everything that I do and things that happen, I just all let it draw back to my spiritual walk and where God is taking me and how he wants to use me.
That is beautiful. And, one of the themes that we have heard throughout many of our panels today is just you have to be uncomfortable. You definitely have to get out of your comfort zone. So, we do have one question from Daryl Arrington. Daryl says, could she talk about how she discovered she was successful? How was she told she had become a bestseller? And then what did it feel like to be approached to get picked up by a publisher? So I know that was three questions in one. So let me start with the first one.
Okay.
Could she talk about how she discovered she was successful? That was his
First
first
of all,
question.
hi Daryl. Thank you for the question. And yeah, success. It's an interesting word. It means a lot of different things, a lot of different people. But when I, for me, when somebody recognized that I had written a book and they bought it that didn't know me, and it was more than two people, more than 100 people, then more than 1,000, then more than like 10,000. I'm like, okay, now the book was a success. that effort was a success. And I knew that really when people, when the bookstores and the people start calling me and saying, we need to get, can we get more of those books? I mean, we just, you self-publish. I just had 2,500 printed. I've used my money. They're like, no, we need like more. We need, and then things start happening, things that were God ordained. Like I went to I know you're supposed to go to this big book expo. And I went there with my little stuff. I was self-published, and in order to get into the Barnes and Nobles back then, the Borders and all those, you have to go through the distributor.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with my little stuff. I didn't know you're supposed to set up a formal process. I was at the book expo. Met somebody there, and I said, well, here's my here's my little had colored copy. This is back in the 98. So 98. So this was, things they weren't as easily to get to it like they are now online, but I had all my stuff and I gave them everything. I sold them the book. And I had gone to I actually had my book done by a professional printing company. I didn't go to Kinko's back then or whatever, or get me a, color jet printer and print it off, and with a staple and spine. I actually did the thing, at the little bookmarks, spent the money. But again, I have a marketing background, right? I have my business hat on. When I wrote the book, that's one hat. Creative is one. Then the publishing and selling, that's the business side. Those are two different areas, right? So when I actually had gone to them, they said, "Oh, people said, well, they're not going to respond to you. They don't respond to individuals." By the time I got home, like, a few days later, they're like, yes, we like to order, I forget how many thousands of books to put into our distribution cycle. And then Walden Books back then, you guys remember Walden Books a long time ago? Well,
Yes.
Walden Books was there, and they said, next time I got a letter from them saying, yes, we would like to order directly, I forget how many, a couple thousand books as well, to distribute across our bookstores across the country. That was unheard of. To reach out for a bookstore a chain like that, to reach out to a self-published author and ask for order several thousand books directly was unheard of. That's when I knew, Daryl, that okay, this is a successful project. It has worked. It's gone better than I expected. But I also know that God had given me favor, because it did, just those things like that just don't work. And then I knew that something was happening when I before I self-published, I sent out letters, had them in a little pretty, purple's my favorite color, little purple folders, printed out little color stuff, all of everything all prettied up, sent it probably didn't follow the protocol, but I had it all nice and neat, sent out to the agents. And some of them, before I could even get it to them, they were already sending me a rejection letter back. I mean, I barely mailed it. I handed it to the mailman, he just handed it right back. They said, just in case you're going to reach out to us. Sorry. So I didn't. So I decided to go ahead and self-publish. Back then, others had doing it, was just starting to become a popular thing. You can get your books out there. So then when I self-published, and then after I sold all those books, then of course, then the publishing houses started coming. Then they're like, oh yeah, we're interested in your book now. And then agents, and even ones that I reached out to, like that had said no before, they were like, yeah, I'm like, nah, that doesn't work, because they don't see the vision, they don't see what I'm looking. But one agent had called me, and she said, I'm with William and Morris. And she said, and I'm gonna be, I don't know if you guys ever heard, they were like the premier cream de la cream, of the agencies. There's like the who's who. They have like the sections. They have the royalty. They have agents that support the royal families. They have agents support the movie stars, the supermodels, all that. So she said, I really want you to represent you, but I'm getting married. She said, when this wedding is coming at a bad time, can you just wait and don't make any decisions before I get back? I just want to represent you. And this is with William Morris. I mean, this was like huge. And so I was like, okay, and just talking to her, I ended up working with her. But I just thought about it and said, okay, well, wow, there's a lot that happened from just really from stepping out in faith. It really was stepping out in faith. Because the book wasn't, I'm a great storyteller. The book was not well written. It was, people loved it and they read it. But that first book, there's no way my book now would look like that. But it told the story. That's what was in it. The story was about a young single girl, in her mid-20s that wanted to get married, and she had this 12-point checklist of the perfect characteristics she wanted. And of course, all the guys that she really liked didn't meet the checklist, but she just wiped it away. But the good guy comes along who meets all 12. She, has some other reason, whatever. But it's like it's a classic story, right? So that's when Daryl, I knew that things were happening and that there was success with the book, and that um, yeah, that it was becoming something that I should continue to do.
So, and I think you answered his third question with that, but I want to go back to a second question, which is, how were you told you had become a bestseller?
Oh, now that's exciting because you get it different ways. You might get somebody just call you up, or back then again, people weren't texting. I don't know if texting was even a thing yet, but they would call you up, or somebody send you an email, or you'll open the magazine, like Essence, and you'll see it, or like sometimes the publisher will tell you. But it depends. Like when I first got with my first book, I was self-published, right? So I just opened the book and I saw it in there, or I got like the Ebony magazine one time, and then there was a store in Chicago. They were doing a feature on them. And then somebody said, "Oh, did you see your book was on the shelf in the back, right behind them as they were, doing the interview?" I'm like, "Oh, so you just get it by word of mouth. You would get it through the trade. You would get it through the publishers. Maybe you might get it through, just reopening the magazine yourself. And then there's also, like Publishers Weekly, their trade magazines and things that are associated in the industry that you also look. So it was all different kind of ways. And every time, no matter what it was, I was always excited. But I'll tell you something, Daryl. One thing, and I say this to everybody, but Daryl, you asked about when you become successful. But I'll tell you what's interesting though. Two things happened. One time back when I had not long after my first book, maybe my first or second, maybe the second or third, I can't remember, but it was early on. I was at the airport. I was coming I know when it was. It was 2001 because my aunt had passed. I was coming for her funeral. And I was living in Pennsylvania at the time. I was coming to Illinois for a funeral, and I was in Chicago. And we were renting a car. And I gave the lady my ID, and "Oh," she said, "Oh wow." She said, "I read your book." And I was like, "Hmm." And then several times, and when I was going to Philadelphia through the TSA, like several of the agents, recognized my name. And I said, "Oh wow." I said, and that's at first it's like, "Oh, that's cool." Then you're like, "Hmm, I don't want to be that public because I'm not a public person." So Daryl, I hope I answered your questions, but yeah. Thank you for the questions.
That is funny. And what an awesome story. I got tickled when you talked about your friends who read your book, and you used an analogy that I have used frequently. Like the people on American Idol don't go on unless somebody other than your mama has told you you can sing. Like if
Yeah.
it's just your mama, your grandmama, your aunties, don't do it.
Don't do
Don't
it.
do
Don't do it.
it. So I appreciate the just the raw honesty, of looking back and saying, "Hey, it wasn't as well written as I would have preferred at that time." But something about that, Patricia, I want to say is we all grow, as writers. But there's something about the rawness of doing it, and you literally are doing it by faith. You don't have
Period.
all the technical skills and you don't overthink. You literally are pouring out your heart. And I think it's something so authentic about that. And
Absolutely.
thank you.
That is so true. When people even ask me, like they said, well, what do I need to do to start writing? You just got to start, and literally don't worry about the grammar. I told them, don't worry about the grammar. Don't worry about this. Don't worry about that. Just pour the words, because that you're the only person that can pour the storyline out of your head. That's editing. They have copy editors, line editors, proofreaders. There's plenty of people to do those things. But the storyline, what God has deposited in your spirit, and that creativity can only flow through you. Get it out on the screen, on paper, whatever you got to do, you know, uh, wood sticks, whatever it is you can get it on, just get it out. Then you can go from there. Because sometimes we say, well, and I'll tell you, when you're writing the first draft, now in the beginning, I would write one or two chapters, I stop and edit, write another chapter, stop and edit. No. Now, when I'm starting a new book, I'm going to write probably about 100 pages. A good, usually the first 50, because the 50 are really tight. You want to do those a couple times, but after that, another 100 pages without editing at all, because you want the storyline to flow. When you stop and start trying to correct and edit, you get all out of your head. Sometimes you lose interest in the story. You ever had a movie you're watching and you love it, but then you start stopping to go watch, go to the get some out of the kitchen or go wash dishes or you go do laundry, whatever. Then you're like, you know what, I'm not gonna finish this right now. I'll finish it later. And you come back and you're still on your DVR. You're like, what did we? Nah, let me just go ahead. So in there a couple of weeks, you're like, I'm just gonna delete it. I'll catch it next time. Because that energy and flow, when you get that flow in your writing, you got to ride it. It's like a wave. You have to ride it, and you can't be distracted. So don't edit, just write. Get the draft out. You can always go back and rewrite.
Oh, that is absolutely true. So anyone who's taking notes, who's interested in writing, please, that is so true. You had said something else about oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to read the chat at the same time. Daryl has some good questions for you. So let me ask
Yeah.
Daryl's questions. So Daryl says, has God ever taught you something personal or privately and then you felt driven to turn it into a story?
I will say that I don't know that a story, but 100% sermons. 100%. And the sermons have come from, like I said, I this was a path he led to get me here, because sermons are writing, it's writing what he drops in your spirit, and reading to study a little bit and then being able to relay it to individuals. But without a doubt, one of the things that God has taught me is that, and I won't say it's the storyline, Daryl, but I will say that it feeds into my writing. And that is that you can't be afraid to step out when he's called you to step out. Because what you think, I don't know if you can even see it. I don't think it's there. One signs, if he calls you to do it, he's going to take you through it. He's going to take you through it. You got to trust. Like for me, I mean, literally writing, speaking out of my comfort zone. Nobody believes it. I was a shy person. I'm really a shy person. I mean, I not that many years ago, sitting in for our development, what do you call those? HOAs, our HOA meeting.
Okay.
And, maybe 100 people in there. I'm so bashful. Literally, I'm like, I'm sitting there. I got to go to the bathroom, but I'm like sitting like, I don't want to have to get up and walk in front of people. I'm like, oh my gosh. Until I have like forced to like run to the bathroom. You're like, here's this person who speaks all, I speak all the time. That time I think I hadn't gotten this far. That was years ago. I'm not like that now. I'll just get up and walk in front of you guys. But, but he's taught me that I have a purpose, and I learned that I'm an encourager, and I learned that everything that I go through, every experience that I have, I'm supposed to share it in a testimony or put pieces of it in a story. Like there's no book I have that represents me. It's not, I couldn't have that much drama in my life, but nothing represents me completely. But every book has like pieces of wisdom or pieces of somebody that I know or pieces of something that I've experienced or that I've learned. So I would say that God is constantly teaching me along the way, more spiritually, that I got to just keep leaning in more and more, that I can't be comfortable, that I'm not going to be comfortable, that if I want to really be a blessing to him and to other people, that I'm not going to be comfortable. I'll be at peace and satisfied, but I'm going to be challenged. Every book you write, you're going to be challenged. Every time you speak, you're going to be challenged. Every time you
Mm.
seek God to hear his confirmation on something, you're going to be challenged. And so for me, what I've learned is that there's going to be challenge. There's going to be some hard work, but he has promised to always bring me through it and make it successful according to his will and his glory. And I've learned that. And because of that, I mean, I'm doing things that I never, planned to do. And I know that there's a lot more. I'm only in my early 60s, so I got a lot more mileage to go.
I know that's right. I know that's right.
Good
Thank you.
questions there, Daryl. We're gonna make you an interviewer.
Right? He's been asking great questions in all of our panel sessions this morning. No pressure, Daryl, but we still have the rest of the day to go, so I'm seeing if you're coming up with stuff. Um, so Patricia, what is it that you can tell us that we don't know about you? What would surprise us about you?
When you read like all the my education and my professional, you know, accomplishments, one of the things that drives me when I was 5 years old in first grade, and I was 5 because I know because my birthday comes in November. So back then you started school in September, and I was still 5, 4 or 5, and I was in first grade. It was a class of 20, 25, whatever. I was the last one to learn my alphabets. And because of that, I remember getting this book that I had to share. I had to share the primer, whatever you call it, that you have the little primer, little reader. I had to share it with somebody. And it didn't have the cover wasn't that great. And I realized at that moment, I don't like sharing very much. And so I was like, this is not what I want to be. So I made a promise to myself that I would never be in that situation, that I would not be last on those kinds of things. And so it really drove me. I remember literally my multiplication table, I learned from 1 to 12 in one night. Like I literally learned it in one night. And when I got to the fifth grade, I think it was fifth grade. But yeah, that inspired me and said, you know what? But then when I learned and how does that apply to my writing is that even thinking back then, I realized that if you really want something and you're willing to put the work in and you're willing to be humble and go for it, you can achieve it. It may take a different amount of time. Maybe, somebody wants to I'm saying I'll use that same analogy, the math tables. It may take me one night, it may take you 5 weeks, but as long as you get it done, it's like understanding that you want to accomplish something and no matter what it is, don't be on somebody else's timing. I learned that, yep, at that time it allowed me to drive. Like I don't have to be the person in the back if I want to be in the front. But if I want to be in the back, that's my choice and that's okay. That I have that power to make the difference. And so that's what I've learned. And so I've, pushed myself. And when it comes to education, numbers are just a natural thing for me though. So I guess maybe that was it. Maybe that's what it was. Now, you know what? No, that just got insight. Because reading and writing stories, that was like, oh, that's to the side. Now the numbers, yeah, I can do that overnight. They give it to me. Light bulb just went off. Yeah, but I was motivated from that. So I've been, been I would say goal oriented for myself, but I'm not that person that even in my career, I mean, I've had some really great roles in corporate America. I'm very, very blessed to do the things that I've been able to do. But even in that, like, you know, I've never pushed to be like chief officer. Could I have been? Yes, no question about it. But it wasn't my thing. Work was always number 5, 6, 7 down at best. No matter how much I was making, no matter what my role and responsibility and title, but because I have other things that are so much more important to me. So it has its role and its place, but yeah.
You prioritize, and
Hmm.
it's funny that when you go after those things that the Lord has put before you instead of what the world says you should go after, you know, there's peace
Yes.
and the blessings are attached to it,
Amen.
because it's you're being obedient. So
So true.
we thank you for your obedience with that first book, because without that, we wouldn't have you with us today. And I am quite sure that I can speak for everyone who is still here that we are enjoying this very much. Um, Let's see. Being so technical, has she thought of making the AI emphasis a major part of a story, or have you done it already? So, have you done anything that has incorporated AI?
I started my editing of the book that I'm working on, the book that I had really come up with the synopsis back almost not 20 years ago, but almost.
Mm,
And then drafted it out probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and then started going back through it recently to re-edit and clean it up, and looking at hired, also got an outside editor because this is out of my normal area. This is I saw that what Cindy does, but it's a political thriller with a spiritual emphasis. Now, that's not something that now this is something that the Lord gave me back in, like, I want to say it was like maybe 2006, 2007, somewhere long ago. I won't even say I won't even say what it is because it would just be too crazy. Because now it's almost become prophetic, literally.
mm,
Um, and but I'll just say it was about a female president and another president wanting to become a third term president. Literally, literally. This was like 2006. And so, um, writing is different. So I got it, drafted it, had people, advanced readers do it. So I've been through many rounds of it. I want to be nice and clean. And then I also got an outside editor to clean, to go through and give us feedback. And so then cleaning it up, I'm like, okay, let me see what kind of also editing, does AI offer? How's that work? Because AI is part of life. It's kind of like, when people resisted the internet, and then they resisted you know social media, and then they resisted, and I'm not a big social media person, but I have an account, or one or two, but we resist so many things. We resisted the electronic fob on the for your toll pass. Everybody, things are moving, so yeah, I'm just starting slowly, but I am one of those that I'm still like, because I started writing in old school territory. I'm not somebody who's gonna, anything I write is gonna be my draft. Because I just believe that I'm the one that's telling the story, any story that God gives me, and I have a whole thing of stories that I'm gonna write and want to write, but I will do that draft. Editing and helping to clean up things like that, I'm all for it. But I think that the story, for me, this is only for Patricia, I'm not saying for anybody else, for me, has to resonate here, and then clean up. Just like I would get another editor or pay an editor, I would just get the free AI, but yeah. So I think
so,
definitely a place for it.
Patricia, it is not just you. There's a lot of us saying amen to that, that the story has to originate with us. And of course, like you said, AI is here to stay, and it's a good tool, and we should use it as a tool, but not to create these stories that the Lord has given us. I want to hone in on one thing you said. For anyone who is here listening and you're thinking about writing and you're like, hey, I'm a good writer, I can do all of this myself. Remember, Patricia has been writing for 28 plus years, 14 best selling novels, and she still gets an editor. That is important to note, that she still gets an editor. So that's just a little plug for anyone who's thinking that you can totally be DIY. Uh, editing is extremely important. And
And
so,
and I was, yeah, and for me, it depends on what, for me, why you're writing. Like, for me, I'm writing these books. I wouldn't be writing these books unless I felt led of the Lord to, like, this is something he wants me to do and reach people. It's a ministry for me to reach people through this way. Some people are never going to read the Bible. They're not going to interact or be in a church, but there are so many spiritual nuggets in these books that I write. So because of that, I'm doing it for the Lord. I have to do it with a spirit of excellence. Now that doesn't mean that there's not gonna be typos. There are gonna be things in there but I gotta do all that I can do
mhm.
to make it right. Publisher does their part, do all they can do. Now the rest of it, God owns that. But you gotta go in with the spirit of excellence. It's not enough for me to just write it and whip it out and then run it through spell check and then bind it up and, put it out there for sale on the market, but again, I'll keep saying this. That's for Patricia. If that's what you're supposed to do, that's what you're supposed to do, because people are going to reach different people in
Mhm.
different ways. And so we always got to remember that. Don't always, I give you the path that Patricia took and the hurdles I did, but God created me to overcome my hurdles and, go my path. You got to know what you're supposed to do. Yours might be supposed to be just print it out, go to Kinko. Oh, I keep calling Kinko's FedEx. See how old I am? That's a shame. Go to FedEx, print it up. Because sometimes, you know why? And I have to say that now. Okay, now I'm thinking about it. It may be that you just got to go to FedEx and copy it, bind it up, staple it, and start giving it out, because we can become procrastinators. We'll think about all the reasons why we can't get it done, or I don't like somebody hadn't even put the first word. They're like, well, how am I going to get a publisher? Don't worry about a publisher. You need to get something written first. And they're like, well, how am I going to, what's my marketing plan? How am I going to sell it? Are you serious? You need to get chapter 1 done. I just want you to get give me the first paragraph. Let me know what that looks like. But don't worry about all that stuff. We get so far in our heads. Let's do one step at a time. And if it means that you're getting caught up because you don't know how you're gonna get it published, then you go print it out and you just staple it up and you give it out to who you got to give it out to. Don't let anything
Amen.
be a hindrance for you accomplishing the mission, which is to get the book done.
Amen. Amen. I just shared not too long ago that God doesn't give us the big picture. He gives us just enough light for the step that we're on, and you have to be obedient to take that step before you move on to the next. So I really appreciate your advice. If she said go to Staples, but if you have to print it out on your laser jet,
That's right.
get whatever you have and do what is it, the word art on Microsoft for your cover. Just do it and get it out there. That is beautiful advice. Um, so Patricia, now you mentioned you have a daughter. Do you have more than one child or just a daughter?
I have a daughter, TJ, and yeah, she's in her mid-20s, living her life, her best life. And I thought she was gonna be right, because she's a strong writing ability, but that's not her thing. Yeah, even though she has a strong math ability too, that's not her thing either. She's like, no, I'm not doing either one of those. But and we also have a niece, my brother's daughter, who is like our daughter. She's older than TJ, so Angeline, her and her husband Eddie, they are our other children, adult adult children. They have 2 babies, so we claim them for sure. We claim them as part under our umbrella because they have 2 babies. So because we claim them, we get to be we're Bami and Boppy to them, which are like grandparents, like grandparents to the little babies. So they come with a package, but we want the babies, but we'll take my niece and nephew because they come with a package. And we're big about family, and we have 2 cats, Chitty and Big Boy. Yeah, but yeah, we're all families. Family is one of my great loves. It's one of the greatest gifts that God has given me. My husband, my mom, my 84-year-old mom is still living. His 89-year-old mom is still here, and we just that is a blessing. Yeah, and there's plenty of stuff. I don't even write about my family because there would be too much to write about. There would be too many stories, and I'd be challenged because I'd be having to write a book every month to try to get through all that kind of stuff.
So, does the fact that your daughter or your niece or any of your family, does the fact that they will read your books ever cause you to second guess something that you would include in your books?
No, no, not now. Early on, when my first book, I was like, you put like, I was really big about using names, like names of people that I know, to like almost like as an honor. Like I'm gonna name, my books to read through, put all these names, and then I'm like, okay, now I just pick whatever name comes to my head. But when you read certain things in a book, you're like, I drawn on. There's no book that has my story, right? But it has pieces of everything that I've seen, heard, experienced, personally or through somebody in my life or whatever. So some things, some situations, you're like, well, they're gonna recognize this because it's something that they did. But then what I realized early on, maybe like I want to say like the third or fourth book, there was one book that I wrote, and I had three or four friends, all in different parts, because I've just lived different places. Just because of that, I've different circles of people in my life, right? And all those circles are not all connected. Three different circles that had the same experience. So I said, oh, so this is one of those that. So I said, well, they have had three people in my different circles had that experience. Other people have had it. So when I throw it out there now, people are like, you can relate or not, but somebody's going to relate. It's like you think it's just your world, but the stuff you're going through, like the Bible says, there's nothing new under the sun. It's just maybe a different flavor, different length of duration, but same stuff. So it's like, no, I don't. And I really write what I know. And I'm praying, Lord, let me get it done. First of all, by the blood of the Lamb, please let me get this book done. But I also write and ask God to let me write what's going to glorify Him and what He wants people to read and the words He wants. So I'm not worried about them reading it or being uncomfortable because I write what I feel anybody can read. That was my premise from the beginning. Write a clean
Mm,
book, plain story that anybody could read and
mm.
and be entertained while underlying getting that spiritual message thrown in there without they realize like it's too late. Like you've eaten up half the pie. You say you don't like ground turkey, but you eat half my turkey loaf before you know it, before it's like you realize it's turkey. So you're like, oh, okay. All right. Let me just finish it up.
Oh, that is that is that's funny. So we have, let's see, it says it's known that most readers and buyers of literature are female, as far as most markets. Do you ever attempt to write for the male reader?
I don't. But when I wrote the Mitchell, I mean not Mitchell, the Maxwell series, the it's a male lawyer who has a couple of challenges and goes through some stuff. And I found out that many men read that because I could tell from the reviews, like, men posted it. And so what I do, I just write the stories that come to me.
Yeah.
And whatever that looks like, I write it. And one of the things I've learned, I go back to one of Daryl's questions. One of the things I've learned, um, don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't assume you know who's going to read your book. Don't
Amen.
assume that you know who you may have a target audience based on what you think you're writing or what you like or what you suspect, but you never know who's going to read the book and who's drawn to that book for whatever reason. So I don't target anybody when I'm writing my books. Literally, I don't target anybody. I just write the story that God gives me, that He gives me the creativity to write, and I write that book and I put it out there, and who reads it reads it.
That is awesome. I am saddened to say that our time with Patricia is coming to an end. I think many of us could sit here and just listen to you all day. You have such a energy and passion, and it is so clear that you love what you do and you seem very, very authentic. And so, before we leave, I do not want to leave without sharing her website. I know that we've had moderators putting links to her book in the chat, but I want to publicly say it for those of you who will watch this video and won't have access to the chat. You can find more about Patricia Haley Glass by visiting patriciahaley.com, and that is Patricia spelled PatriciaHaley.com. So please make sure that you visit her website, patriciahaley.com. Patricia, thank you so much for being here. Are there any final words you would like to share? I don't know if you're reading the comments, but I'm reading the
I
comments, and
am.
people have been so blessed by your presence and attendance today. Can we all do like react buttons and uh, give her hand claps and all those things. This has just been so wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Anything you would like to share before we end?
Yes, first of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me and let me be a part of this wonderful fellowship. And I just want to say that, everybody, everybody that comes into this world has a purpose and gifts and talents that God has given us. And what we know is that they're never for us. They're always to benefit somebody else. So when you focus on what you have to use, you have to realize that you have to do it because somebody is waiting on you. You are somebody's answer to prayer. You are
Mm.
somebody's gift. You are somebody's blessing that may make the difference between them wanting to continue and not. Like literally, that seriously. So writing is a joy, it's a pleasure, the gift. So I know there are many aspiring authors on here, but you don't have to be an author to touch people's lives. So I'm just grateful to be here. And I saw somebody in the chat said about the key is just writing a good story. Yeah. Even when you write faith-based fiction, you can't just have it loaded up with scriptures and all that. The most important thing, the first thing is storytelling. Tell a good story, capture people, and then hook them in. Like I said, with that turkey loaf, give them a nice big chunk that tastes good up front. Before you know it. And by the way, my website is, but I actually just got it updated. So it'll be actually up, it's on there now, but it'll be updated live next week. It has my sermons on there, has some other things on there. So yeah. Yep. And I'm working on my next book and really, really working on this political thriller, which I expect to be finished up in just a matter of 2 weeks. So look for that sometime next year, hopefully. Within the next
Awesome.
couple of years. I don't know how long it takes, but I did my part.
Yes.
So thank
So
you.
thank you. And once again, patriciahaley.com. And thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Okay. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.